Attention in the pits. All racers reporting to the staging lanes. The show's about to start.
I've been trying to
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Spring is in the air. When is spring? March 22nd? I believe.
It's springtime.
Yeah, you don't know the date?
Oh, yeah, let me plug that in.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the black over here. We're in the dark. We can't see nothing.
There we go. How's that in a second?
Now we should be able to.
Yeah, you know what?
There we go.
And we're actually kind of bright on the screen, too, now, which is good. Well, I'm bright. I don't know about you.
Well,
Yeah, so anyway, what we're going to talk about tonight is, when it's springtime, so everybody's getting their cars out. And so we need to do a little bit of maintenance so that your classic vehicle doesn't let you down over the summer. And the biggest thing that I see guys do is they don't change out the fuel in the car. A lot of guys like to park those things with a half a tank or better of fuel in them. And if you don't put stable in it, then your fuel, today's fuel sucks. So it loses octane and it starts to varnish. It starts to turn to like a brown, nasty goo. So you want to take and get that fuel out of the car or vehicle as fast as possible.
fast is quick.
Fast as quick.
That is lickety
quick.
split quick.
You guys have to excuse me. My brain is fried. This time of year, I don't stop. It's nonstop all day, and phones ringing, and chasing parts, and working on cars, and customers coming in, and spring is in the air. So, I mean, I'm quoting and working, and it's a lot going on this time of year for me. It's always been that way for 43 years, and ain't going to stop now. So, but anyhow, it fries my brain because I got to think so much during the day. But anyway, back to the what we need to do for maintenance. Like, what did you do with your truck when you pulled it out?
I got in it, sat down, turned the key on, and drove it.
And bitch whenever it broke down, didn't you?
Well, I blamed the engine builder.
Oh. Well, you were the engine builder.
Well, that's who I yelled at. No,
okay.
so what I did was I had a checklist, and the reason why I had this checklist is because I had you in the back of my head telling me that you need to check this stuff. So I would check, for oil leaks first and foremost. I would look underneath the car, look on my underneath the valve covers, and look, where you would typically see oil at, and make sure there's no major oil leaks that happened over from because my garage wasn't heated, so. Whenever it gets really cold, things shrink up, So I wanted to make sure, let's make sure we don't have any oil leaks first. There's no oil leaks. Okay, so now I'm going to actually put a heat cycle through my motor first, was my thinking. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted everything to get warm, then I let it cool off, and then I go around and check all my bolts. So I check my valve cover bolts, my intake bolts, header bolts. That was the main things I checked, but then I also went a little bit further because I have tinkeritis as well. I would go and check my torque converter bolts and my bell housing bolts and my drive shaft.
There's nothing wrong with that.
U-joints, yeah. U-joint bolts to the rear end.
Yeah, good.
And then I always check my lug nuts too.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'll tell you a real quick story. When I was younger, we used to have what was called a unilug wheel, which had a oval shaped up washer, so it would fit multiple bolt patterns. And they were ET slots. Some of you guys might remember those wheels. Anyhow, I'm cruising down the highway at about 55 mile an hour in my 68 Firebird, and I got my wife, which at the time was my girlfriend, and I got her brother in the back seat. Next thing I know, I see my tire rolling out about 300 feet in front of me.
That's scary.
Oh, shit. I don't think that's supposed to happen now.
Nope.
So anyhow, my lug nuts came loose and came off, and I lost a wheel. And fortunately, it didn't hurt anything. As soon as I seen the wheel, the car dropped down, and when it did, it was the right wheel, thank God. And I was able to get it over to the berm pretty quickly and didn't tear up my, at that time, I had drum brakes on that car. So it was running on the drum, literally on the ground.
That's probably your best bet, though.
It probably was. You know, if it had been a rotor, it might not have been so good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So anyway, he brings up a very good point. You should check your lug nuts because I had that happen, and then what happened was back then we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have nothing. You know, you had to find a payphone or you had to go knock on somebody's door, and this is out in the middle of the country, and so.
You don't go knocking on doors in the middle of the country.
We did, but I did it very gingerly, and I stood back so to make sure I didn't get shot. But yeah, so I go knock on a farmhouse door and ask them to use the phone so I can call my dad to come help me out. And so my dad brings a jack out, and fortunately he thought enough ahead to bring the correct lug nuts for a steel wheel, and we threw a steel wheel on it, and we put the wheel back on. Actually, it sheared off 3 of the studs, so we only had 2 studs to hold the wheel on to get home.
That's all you need.
So yeah, so check your lug nuts.
Yep.
That's a great idea. So yeah, you know, that's all good stuff. And then of course you want to change your oil and filter.
Yep.
You know, I run it, get a little heat in the engine first before I change mine when in the springtime. I don't change it in the fall. Some guys like to change it in the fall. I was one of those guys. I did. Well, the reason I don't like to is because if you don't have a heated garage, which most of the time I did not, you get a lot of condensation that builds up in the oil. And so you got brand new oil in there, and you're going to have to change it.
Right.
So that's why I warm it up a little bit before I change the oil in the spring, and then it gets rid of the water and gets all the oil out of the engine. So I do the oil changes in the spring, and so you want to change your oil in your classic car depending on how much you drive it. I mean, most of my customers, believe it or not, only put like 2,000 or 3,000 miles a year on their classic car or hot rod, and so you're only going to change oil one time a year. It's typically in the spring, and make sure you use good quality mineral based, not synthetic. I don't like synthetic oil unless you got a newer engine. You know, the LS engines and Hemis or whatever, you can run synthetic in, but the old stuff, if you put synthetic in them, they leak like a Harley Davidson on a hot day. So,
well, what about the Lucas hot rod oil?
That is mineral based and has
Oh,
zinc.
it is mineral based.
And
I thought it was
that's
synthetic.
the other thing. You want the high zinc too.
Yeah.
So now Royal Purple might be what you're thinking of, and
Well,
Royal Purple, some of theirs is synthetic, and so some of the Valvoline racing oils too.
Yeah, the Valvoline VR50 is a synthetic, isn't it?
Well, you can get the VR1 in synthetic or mineral based.
Oh,
so you want to get it in the mineral based for our engines, and you want 50 weight. You know, just because these new cars run 20 weight, or some of them are even down to like 15 weight. I don't even know, 0W15 or 0W20.
Yeah, 0W20 is like my 2019 Silverado.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. So what's your Jeep?
Might be
I
5W30.
think it's 5 or some it's calling for 0. So
Yeah, my Suburban takes a 5W30 Mobile 1 synthetic, but you don't want to use that in the older engines for a couple reasons. Newer engines have tighter bearing clearance, and your factory engine would have had tighter bearing clearance than what we normally run for a race engine or high performance engine from the factory, like 1,500 bearing clearance, where performance engine you're going to run 2.5 to 4,000 bearing clearance. So you want the thicker oil, especially in a hot day when the oil starts to thin down. So you want that protection. Don't use a lightweight oil.
The only time that it sucks is whenever it's like a fall day.
Yeah, the oil pressure will be a little higher.
Yeah, but it just makes me worry that I'm working the oil pump to death.
You ain't working that oil pump. That thing's a workhorse. What you got to worry about is blowing the filter up.
Well,
It'll look like a Jiffy Pop popcorn whenever you. So don't over rev them whenever your engine's cold. It'll definitely blow the filter up. So
and that's another thing too. Like I always use Wix filters.
yeah, oh yeah. Do not use Fram filters. Those things are garbage. And Wix, unfortunately, Wix is you couldn't get a Wix filter for a long time. I don't know if you know that or not. And the reason is because they shut the plant down, I think, because they sold it. And now I think Hallibrand, maybe one of our guys online tonight knows.
Is this recent?
About a year or two ago, yeah.
That explains why I couldn't find a Wix oil filter for my truck.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to use I actually end up using a K&N.
K&N. I don't know about K&Ns. I've never cut one of those apart, so I don't know what it looks like inside. But I just switched over to Royal Purple now. I don't know who Royal Purple has make their filter because they're not making it. They're having somebody do it for them. But I did that or an AC Delco. But the problem with the AC Delcos, I just seen on the box they're made in China now.
Yeah.
So I don't want that piece of shit on my engine.
The guy, when I went to get the truck, and he said, "Don't get that." And I'm like, "No, I stick with Wix if you have it." But
Right.
Again.
And go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
they
didn't mean to-
they were short on almost every Wix filter what I get because I've run it in everything. Stump grinder, Harley.
That's it. That is the best filter on the market, and I don't know if you know it or not, but the Napa filters are Wix filters.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, and it's
yeah.
but it's not, right now even at that you can only get the Napas from Napa.
Yeah.
So where's a Napa? I have one close by, which is but still I forget it's there.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, you couldn't get the Napa filter for a long time because they didn't have them because Wix went out of. I don't know if they went out of business. I think they made.
Well,
went to a
John
transition.
Dornbush just said that Amsoil and Wix are the same now.
Okay.
Okay.
So who owns Amsoil?
I don't know. Maybe John knows. I mean, he's got a buddy that sells that.
Because I don't
stuff.
think they're their own company. I think they're owned by someone too.
Well, no, Amsoil is their own company, but they don't make their filters. They buy them from somebody.
And Amsoil is hard to get too. They're just like
Well, you can only buy that from a dealer. You can't go to the store and buy it. So, well, you used to not be able to. I don't know. Maybe you know.
you can get it from you can get certain weights. Like you can get Amsoil for a motorcycle, but not for a car. You can't get it. A certain weight.
Like
car.
what at the Harley dealers?
No, you can get it. It's a Harley dealer, and then like you said, normal motorcycle dealership. But O'Reilly's has Amsoil.
Oh, really?
But they just don't have the weight because I was going to go Amsoil or Royal Purple, but they don't have any of the weight for my Harley. So they can't keep it in stock.
I didn't know that AutoZone or O'Reilly had Amsoil.
Now, I'm
Todd,
not
S.
sure
I
about
thought that was like a dealer. You had to be a dealer for Amsoil, but I don't know for sure if they've changed or not. It's been a while since I've talked to anybody about that. I used to buy a lot of Amsoil.
Todd S. says last he was told Napa is not making Wix anymore, or not made by Wix anymore.
Yeah. So, well, I don't think Wix is made by Wix anymore. I think they're Hallibrand is who it is. But yeah, anyway, you got to be careful what filter you put on there. And the reason I don't like the Fram filters, when you can cut a brand new Fram filter apart, and there's rust in the casing, number one, and number two, the check valve in them will be stuck open half the time whenever you open up that filter. And what that is it allows the oil to go one way but not the other. And so that thing can, and then there's a pressure relief valve in there too. So
That's what was getting stuck on back when I had my Kia Soul. They had a recall out, and for the top of the motors, we're getting starved of oil. And
it'll restrict the oil flow. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And so whenever I got the thing in, they just said they had an oil usage problem in their motors, and take your car to the dealership and they will fix it. So I took it to the dealership, and I noticed on the wall, big old sign says, "Do not use Fram oil filters."
Yeah, Fram oil filters are junk. And, hopefully there isn't any Fram dealers watching tonight or whatever. I don't mean to slam a product, but you know what? I don't want my customer to buy that and then have problems. The other thing that it'll do, too, is the housings are not crimped properly, and they'll actually start leaking or come apart. Because when the engine's cold, it'll push the seal apart, and then it'll pump the oil out of the engine. So, and that brings up another good point. So if you guys do your own oil change, and a lot of you guys do,
Bring your oil to DCI Motorsports.
Yeah, I need it for my heater in the wintertime. But anyway, your used oil.
Yes.
But the other thing you want to do is the rubber O-ring that seals against the oil filter adapter. Make sure that comes off with the old filter. Because if not, and you put the new filter on and that's still stuck on there, it'll pump all the oil out of the engine by the time you get out there to see if you got a leak or not.
Yeah, we may have a person that knows that from experience.
Yeah, who did that?
Andrew.
No. Well, no. Andrew didn't do it. Well, he might have done that too. I don't know. Andrew learned a lot of lessons at the shop.
Oh, well, it's a good thing.
Andrew's my son-in-law, and I love the guy to death. But the poor guy, what happened was, were you there when Dave and Jimmy told him that it took like 12 quarts of oil to put in his engine? I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. So poor Andrew, he filled his whole engine up with a whole case of oil because that's what the guys around the shop told him, and Andrew didn't know. In his defense, I mean, he was only 17 or 18. I don't even know.
He was like 17,
and he was changing oil in his Trans Am in my shop. Anyhow, I drive by, and poor Andrew, he just had gotten it all cleaned up, but it made a mess out of my shop. It literally dumped all the oil all over the floor on the shop. And I'm driving by. I'm out cruising by on a Sunday because he was using the shop on a Sunday. And he seen me, and it was like a deer in a headlight.
Oh, shit. I'm in trouble.
I'm mad. Oh, boy. Poor Andrew. But you know what? My shop floor was excellently clean.
Oh, it was immaculate.
Oh, my gosh. It was the cleanest it's ever been.
Yep.
And well lubed.
All the cracks were lubed.
Yes, they were. With brand new oil.
Mm-hmm. But no, so that make sure the O-ring came off of the old filter. And so anyways, do that. Now your antifreeze you want to do in the fall. You always want to check to make sure it's obviously good enough for whatever your weather is in your area. I always like to go like a minimum of 30 below. But keep in mind that the more concentrated it is with antifreeze, the less that it cools the engine. So a 50-50 mix is a pretty good mix, and I think that's like 34 below zero is what that is.
I was going to say, I'm trying to picture the Pistons thing because it tells you it's good for like negative something.
Yeah, so I think it's minus 34 if you do a 50-50 mix. And and if you obviously make it more concentrated and make a 40-60 mix or whatever, it'll go for lower temperatures. But honestly, a 34 degree below temperature or mix would be fine for just about 90% of the people. The only ones that might not be good for is like somebody in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Alaska.
Where it stays cold for a very long time and it gets bitter cold.
Yeah, we're talking wind chill factors of minus 50 in them.
Because you had a customer that had his race car in the trailer, if I'm not mistaken, and the block froze with water in it, and it just popped the freeze plugs, and he got lucky.
Well, I had that happen, but I had another customer too, and this happened. This is creepy because I'm sure you guys have opened up a can of Coke before, and it instantly freezes over. Well, if the temperature is just right. And what happened was a customer of mine went to check his radiator fluid to see if it was good for the winter. And it wasn't winter yet. It was like a fall day, but we had a real cold snap that night. It was like minus 30 degrees, I think. And so he went in the next morning and he said, I knew as soon as I twisted the radiator cap, it was bad. He twisted the radiator cap, it froze, and it literally split the block all the way around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tears coming down my face.
Oh, yeah, because he was going to put antifreeze in it for the winter because you run water as a race car and you run water at the track. You're not supposed to run antifreeze at the racetrack, although a lot of people do. I do. I'm guilty of it. But you're not supposed to run antifreeze at the racetrack because it's slippery. And if it leaks and gets under somebody's slick, it's dangerous. So you want to make sure and follow the rules of the track. But yeah, so you want to do your antifreeze like not late fall, but early fall, so that it's not real cold outside and you don't end up with that problem.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And honestly, I mean, you know, the antifreeze, once you get it, it's good for a couple of years. You really don't have to worry too much about it. I would check the level.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, the antifreeze in our classics, we could probably change it every 3 or 4 years, and it ain't gonna be a problem.
yeah. Because, I mean, I had it in my truck for probably 8 years after I got the motor built, and I never changed it. I just checked the oil. I checked the level of it,
Yep.
and if I had to add it, I'd just add some.
Yeah. No, you're good. You know, if you got an overflow bottle, you can check it there too.
Yeah.
You don't even have to take the cap loose. But,
Yep, that's what I did. I don't think I ever took the cap off that thing.
Mike Rafferty said, "Can putting your vacuum pump into the timing cover help pull oil to the crankcase void?"
it really doesn't matter where you draw your vacuum at on the engine. The big thing with a vacuum pump, though, and actually we're fixing an engine right now for a customer that had a vacuum pump on it, and he said he's taking the thing off because what happened was if you get a little bit of a leak anywhere, and we vacuum test all our engines after we get done if they're going to run a vacuum pump to make sure they hold vacuum and draw down to like 28 inches or whatever. But anyway, if you get a little bitty leak, and it don't matter where it's at, it could be the valve cover, it could be the rear seal, could be the valley cover, it could be the timing cover, it could be the harmonic balancer seal, it can be anywhere. A vacuum pump will literally suck all the oil right out of your engine, and that's what happened to the one we're fixing right now. So it spun a rod bearing because it didn't have any oil in the engine. Yeah. So, you know, vacuum pumps are great because they add a little bit of horsepower and they stop leaks. If you have a leak, problem with that, if you have a leak, that's when your problem comes up when you suck the oil out of the pan. So it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, they're worth about 20, 25 horsepower, believe it or not.
Wow.
So, you know, it's definitely a horsepower game, but unless you're on that engine all the time, it's not really for a street car. That's more for a race car. And
What's the vacuum pump they put on like my truck? There's a vacuum pump, but I don't know if it's because it's.
Well, you have an air pump maybe. I don't know about a vacuum pump unless it's running some kind of accessory. You have an air pump for your suspension maybe. They used to put air pumps on the engine, and we would convert those to vacuum pumps back in the day. But that was an air pump for pollution. It would pump air into the exhaust.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I'm not 100% certain what it is. I just know everyone's deleting them.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My Suburban doesn't have a vacuum pump on it, so I'm not sure. Now, with the cool, I had a BMW, and that was a cool car. That thing actually had crankcase vacuum, and but it was bad because of the same thing that I was just telling you about with the vacuum pump on a race engine. It whenever I had a crack in I think it was crack in one of the.
Oh, it's for the brakes.
Okay. Well, you don't have a diesel.
Nope.
But you got a vacuum pump?
Yep.
Really?
Looks just like that.
No kidding. Runs off the front of the engine, huh?
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And it
I don't work on late model stuff anymore, so I don't know.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, well, I'm not into it. There's too many tools needed. That's why we went to the old cars. But and that's why we specialize in old cars. But anyhow, where was I at with that? I don't remember now. But yeah, the vacuum pumps can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. And it doesn't really matter, to answer your question, Mike. We take it out of the valve cover. And I like to take it out of either the center of the valve cover on a Pontiac, like where the breather was at, because there's a gap in between the rockers there. Or we take it out of the end of the valve cover and we build a baffle in behind it so it doesn't suck the oil out of the engine. And either way, you should build a baffle, even if you do it in the center of the valve cover too. Or you can do it in a valley cover. I don't recommend that because it will suck the oil out of the engine. Timing cover would probably suck the oil out of the engine too, so I wouldn't recommend that either. I've seen guys do it. They do it on a fuel pump block off. They'll put it right on the fuel pump block off, and maybe that's what you're thinking, but I would not do that.
And really, do it on the valve cover. That way, everyone sees it. It's a power statement. You have that big tube coming off there.
Yeah, it looks like a top fuel car.
Yeah.
Got that big giant vent tubes on there.
That's a statement maker right there.
They go to the big giant oil can about that big
Yeah.
around.
Now you're talking.
Yeah,
you
that's
pull
big.
up to the car show and you open the hood, people will be.
Yeah, you put that thing right in the trunk of your car so it pokes through the. You know what? You even build a little hood scoop for it.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, and when you open your trunk, they say, "Man, what is that?"
Yep. Talk of the car show, guaranteed.
Yeah, don't listen to my son. You give him bad advice. So, what other questions we got in there?
Not a whole lot of questions. A lot of, showing up. It looks like everybody's starting to fill in now.
Well, we got
Tim
it with
has
us
one.
tonight.
Tim Korsiak has a question.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay, there's one.
I can't read it. You're gonna have to read it.
How
for me.
many break-in miles should I put on a new engine you did for me?
Tim, man, I want you to get that thing done. I can't wait to see how that thing runs. But anyhow, to answer your question, it depends on. I know you're a pretty conservative person, and if you're like me, I don't really put a lot of break-in miles on my engines, but I'm not going out and doing a rev limiter burnout every time I take a car out either, like a lot of people do. So
Well, that's why you build them.
no, you don't. They cost too much money, and I'm not going to blow it up. So, anyways, I think I shared with you. Maybe I didn't. If I didn't, tell me, and I'll get the sheet to you how we break in a new engine. But basically, what you're going to do is you're going to get that thing running. Make sure you don't have any leaks. Make sure your timing's set. Your fuel curve, you don't really have a way to check it, but I think we did the carburetor for you, so it should be pretty darn close. Get the thing running right away so that you can drive it immediately. Don't let it idle a lot. Get it out on a long stretch of road where you can actually you can cruise it for a while, and you want to get the thing up. You want to go from about 35 mile an hour up to about 60, 65, depending on your speed limit. And you want to moderate pretty heavily. You're not going to floor it, but you're going to give it probably 3/4 of a throttle in high gear. And the reason you're going to do that is you want to get the rings seated as soon as possible. And even though we run them on a stand and the rings have already begun to seat, they're still not seated. You need to put it under a load. And what you want to do is, like I said, take it from 35 to about 65, 70 mile an hour. And you want to do that consecutive, on and off about 15 to 20 times. And that'll load the rings enough that they should seat pretty quickly then. And then I won't beat on it a little bit. I'll drive it easy for like another 50 miles. And when I say easy, I'm accelerating kind of hard, but not full throttle hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
He's been with me. He knows how I drive.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I know exactly how you drive.
It's like a fisherman story.
Yeah.
I didn't do it,
but yeah, so don't beat on it for a little bit. You know, the first probably 150, 200 miles. Then after that, then you can give a short burst. You know what I mean? Your engine's going to be able to roll along in low or second gear at about 30 mile an hour, and you stuff it, it's going to blow tires off unless you got a sticky DOT tire on it, and it might hook then. But with a regular radial tire, you're going to smoke the tires at a 20, 30 mile an hour roll. And it's fun. You know what I mean? Get in the throttle, smoke the tire a little bit, let it shift into second gear, and then get out of the throttle. That ain't going to hurt
I was
it.
going to say, try to keep it off the rev limiter at that point.
Yeah, you don't want it on a rev limiter because you will hurt it. And then after 500 miles, you want to change your oil and filter, and then put another 500 miles on it, change it again. You're going to do that every 500 miles for the first 3,000 miles. And the reason I tell everybody to do that is we want to get rid of any like lint from rags or metal shavings from, I don't know, new pistons. Sometimes you'll see a piece of aluminum off of a new piston. even though we scrub all that stuff, for some reason there always ends up being little pieces of aluminum in the oil when you pull the filter. And I always take the filter off and I cut it apart so I can look at the in between the pleats. You got to pull the pleats apart and look in there and see what's in there. You know, you don't want to see any orange copper stuff because that's bad. That means the bearings are going. And but other than that, nothing else alarms me. You're going to see a little bit of RTV. You're going to see some black metallic looking stuff, which is basically the rings breaking in. You're going to see
assembly lube on the first.
You might see a little assembly lube, yeah. And you might see that clear up to 35 minutes. You might even see that for 10,000 miles, believe it or not. That moly lube is hard to get rid of out of the engine. But yeah, so to answer your question, you can be pretty aggressive with it right out of the gate. But you don't want it on the rev limiter, and you don't want to floor it every time you stop at a stoplight. So, you know, you want to feel the power.
You just take the fun out of a whole new motor.
No, I know. But you know what? Drag guys do it. They take it out. And I don't do that. Whenever we put a new engine together, like whenever we get the Le Mans together, I'm going to have my son, first pass, I want him to make like a 300-foot pass. That's all I want him to do, and then idle it back to the pits, and we'll check everything. And then the next pass, I'll let him go maybe an 1/8 mile, and we'll check everything again, and then we'll do a 1/4 mile and see where everything's at.
This is on the expressway, right?
Yeah, right in front of the shop.
Now you're talking. Yeah. I'll do that on.
And make sure you drink a little bit of beer and have a shot of whiskey too, because when the Stady pulls you over, you want to make sure you really do it up.
I'll offer him some. I'll say, you want some?
Let's go for a ride.
Oh yeah, take the beer with you.
Yeah.
I'm giving bad advice now, so don't listen to me.
I'll share. What is there to see on the rings?
Well, basically, you're just wearing a ring into the cylinder wall, and if you have a good cylinder wall finish, and I've taken years and years and years studying that to get that right. So my ring seal is pretty quick. It usually seals up, believe it or not, most of the time on the run stand. But if it don't seal it up on a run stand, it doesn't take but maybe 150 miles and the rings are seated. And what that means is basically they're just getting happy with the cylinder wall and wearing off the new finish from the rings and making sure that the cylinder wall finishes proper so that the oil gets in the crosshatch and keeps the rings lubricated so they don't start to gall up.
And Philip III, seriously, do you think the new Fram filter is the cause of my 3800 taking a puke? And if so, how can I tell?
Well, I don't know about that, Phil. I think you had mentioned that you had an oil, pretty severe oil leak, and you had a lifter tick. So probably not the filter. It was probably the sending unit. And if that was a new sending unit, I don't know what kind of recourse you would have there, but, you could call the manufacturer and see. I think what they're going to do is they're going to tell you to F off, and here's a new oil sending unit. And they might even give you a new oil filter and oil too, but I don't think they're going to do anything for you on the engine.
Holy shoot. Salvatore Sam Augusta, ladies and gentlemen, says, hello, boys. New block taking shape.
Oh, I haven't talked to Sammy in a while. You know what? I've been so busy, I haven't even had time to talk to my buddy Sam. Hey, actually, I call him my brother Sam.
Sammy.
But I'm glad he's on tonight. Good. So,
BNR Racing wants to know, have you ever DLC coated wrist pins from Trend or PPPC Precision Products Performance Center?
Yeah, I like the DLC coating on it. I buy the Trend wrist pins, and I always get them for the high performance stuff, not for street cars, but for high performance stuff, we get the DLC coating on it. And it does two things. It gives it a harder finish, which is more durable, and it's actually a smoother, slicker finish too. And so it's twofold. And we learned a lot of that stuff doing the Engine Master Challenge. I mean, we were in probably, 7, 8 Engine Master Challenges.
Yep.
We were in a lot of them. And so we did a lot of dyno testing with different products, and that was one of them, actually, the DLC coating. And my buddy Woody, I don't know if he's on tonight or not, but he's the one that actually turned me on to that. And I knew about it, but I didn't really, I thought it was snake oil. But after using it and seeing the dyno numbers, and we're talking minute numbers, guys. But in the Engine Master Challenge, 1.5 horsepower here, 2.5 horsepower there, 3 horsepower there, 5 horsepower here. That adds up to 10, 15 horsepower, which is the difference between a winner. You know, the competition is so tight that you're not dealing with, an average engine builder. These guys are all top shelf guys that you're competing against.
Yeah, it's almost like pro stock racing.
Yeah, and so we're all separated by like 20 horsepower. So I mean, it's not like there's a guy that just runs away with it, unless which that doesn't happen. But there might be a guy that gets a DNQ or DNF, which did not qualify or did not finish. But you don't. I mean, most of the guys in the competition, we're right there. I mean, we're all badasses.
So we got a couple more questions, but real quick, have you seen Steve Moore's new video today?
I did not. I haven't had time to watch.
He has his pistons coated in this special coating that only nitromethane guys use.
Well, it's not just nitromethane guys. Line-to-line coating is who he's talking about. And I did not see the video yet, but my Woody buddy again.
Whoa, you're Woody.
Yeah, my Woody. I hope he's watching. Woody, my buddy, he actually is a representative for that company, and he's been trying to get me to try that for years now, because they've had that product for probably 4 or 5 years, and they just did a podcast on that actually, not about 2 weeks ago, and he sent me a link to it, and I didn't get to watch that either. This time of year, guys, I wanted to tell everybody too while I got everybody's captivity right now.
Yeah, why he has a captive.
Yeah, well, I got you captive. You know what? I cannot get to the telephone. I cannot get to my computer. I can't even scratch my ass and go to lunch. So don't be mad at me if you try to get a hold of me and I don't answer you, because I just cannot do it. We're too busy. This is our busy season, and it's going to be busy clear through till, and really, we don't even slow down that much anymore. It used to be cyclical, but it ain't anymore. We're busy pretty much 12 months out of the year, but it used to be when the kids go back to school, it'd slow down. When people go on vacation, they go and slow down. In the springtime, you're getting, well, in the springtime it'd be vacation, but in the fall, you got kids going back to school, so you need to buy school clothes. When I was doing everyday kind of cars, man, I could tell it was up and down, up and down. But now that all I do is performance stuff, man, you guys want to spend your money, and I love it. So,
Paul said, so if you properly assemble the motor and oil your cylinders and your rings right on this oil to seal, then you should really have no break-in because your oil is the seal between the cylinder and the ring, and the cylinder holds the oil.
Well, I kind of agree with that and don't agree with that. So it used to be what we would do is which is the wrong way to do it, I learned, that you would dip your piston in a can of oil and then put it in the engine. And that is not the proper way to do it. So if you don't use the proper oil when assembling an engine, your rings will not seat. And I used to think that you wanted to use engine oil. We don't do that anymore. We don't use engine oil to assemble them anymore. And I'm not picking on, who was it? Paul?
Paul. Just says Paul.
Okay.
It looks like he has a red 70-something Trans Am.
Okay. And I don't mean to pick on you, but it just we found from years and years of experience and trial and error and doing things the wrong way, that we have a system now that we use, and believe it or not, the rings you can actually hear them start to seal or seat while you're turning the engine over when you're assembling it. and we don't use engine oil anymore. We used to, but we don't any longer. And I think what it was is the engine oil was actually reducing the friction too much, and not allowing the ring to grab the cylinder wall, or cylinder wall grab the ring, whatever way you want to look at it, and kind of get a good seat. So we quit doing it that way. And there is, I think Total Seal actually has a product out now. It might be in an aerosol can that you spray the rings with and assemble the engine. A lot of, I mean, I don't know this for sure. Maybe some of the guys watch Total Seal's podcast and things, but for a while they were telling everybody to basically assemble the engine dry. I don't want to do that, and I think that's why they came out with an aerosol version of lubricant that you can put it together with.
I just spit on it. I hot two on that thing.
What are we talking about again?
Got spit on that thing.
Yeah. Okay. All of a sudden, I feel uncomfortable.
You're the one talking about your Woody.
Yeah. My buddy Woody.
Well,
he is my buddy. That's right.
I was gonna say, my Woody's my buddy.
I can't wait on this conversation. You got your buddy Woody out too.
Yep. Where was that? Oh, B&R Racing asks, when does the busy racing season, winter, spring, typically end, or for high performance racing engine builders?
It seems like we're busy all year round, man. Because what ends up happening is, because there's so many events now. You know, you got drag week, and you got drag and drive, and you got the mile runs, and you got, I mean, there's so much going on now that my customers are constantly needing engine work. So, you know, and you know what? Don't fool yourself. If you think that you're going to build an engine and it's going to go balls to the wall and last 10, 15 years like a car that you're driving every day to the grocery store, it ain't going to happen. I mean, you know what? You hear guys talk about it all the time. And honestly, back in the day before I knew better, my race engines, I wouldn't take them out of the car, but maybe once every 3-4 years and freshen them up. But then I realized that, you know what? Valve springs wear out, and bearings will start to distort. And if you catch them in time, they won't spin. You can save them, which saves a lot of money, because now you're not tearing the crank up, you're not tearing the connecting rods up. You know, there's a lot of, you know, you just cannot abuse something like that and expect it to last that kind of life. It just doesn't happen. I mean, there are guys that say they do it. I see it all the time online. I see it on Facebook, and God love them. You know, good for you guys, but I'm not going to do that anymore. And I used to be that guy. I used to say, oh, you can go 5-6 years and not touch that engine. I don't think that's so much anymore.
We had Philip the Third. What was that question up there? Flow direction. If the filter is blocking flow, pressure can build until the sending unit blows, correct?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I see where he's going with that. That's a possibility. If your oil pressure gets too high, it could blow the seal on the sending unit, because basically it's crimped with a seal inside of it. So possibly, you know, if and it sounds like Phil's was using a Fram oil filter.
That's what he said. He goes,
Sounds
that
like
would
it.
cause it. So.
And he's got a little buddy too.
Well, I wish I had a big buddy, but I don't.
Well, yeah.
I got a little buddy.
Paul said other rings touch the cylinder wall when
I don't.
when did that start wearing off
Is that a question?
your homeworks? What you want to keep your oil up on the cylinder walls? I'm not being a dick. I'm just clarifying.
No, you're good, man. So, and what was the question again? And you know what? There's nothing wrong with debating this because I like to do this. This is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. Don't
Well,
take it.
let me read his next comment. But I think he's asking or saying that there's other rings that touch the wall too, and doesn't that scrape off other things that your other rings are trying to break in, or put scratches into your cylinder wall? But let me read his other. He goes, having built motors like you guys, but I have, haven't built motors like you guys, but I have worked on the dyno and not have had one ring problem yet breaking in engines. I have got pretty good information for my friend at CP.
Okay, good. Well, so basically, so there's typically three rings on a piston. Okay, you got your top ring, you got your second ring, and you have your oil ring, which is a package. It's got two thin rings and an expander in between there, which pushes the two thin rings into the cylinder wall. And the oil ring basically is supposed to be like a scraper. It's supposed to remove excess oil off the cylinder wall. And the two top rings are the ones that really do all the sealing, although the oil ring does seal too. And so if you don't have your expander ring, the, the expander that goes in behind those rings, I found has, in some situations, now we used to use Charles and Albert all the time. I love their rings. And I think that Total Seal actually bought Charles and Albert out, but I'm not sure that either. So anyway, that expander, we have found that you can tweak that and create more or less drag with the oil ring on the cylinder wall. And the less drag you have, the more horsepower you're going to see out of the engine. And but there's a fine line there. If you don't get that expander ring set just right, and you get your oil tension or your oil ring tension too light, then what'll happen is you're going to have an oil burner, and there's no fixing it except for tearing back apart and replacing the rings and the ring package, because your top two rings really don't seal your oil. It's the oil ring that seals your oil from the crankcase to the combustion chamber. The top two rings' job are to contain the combustion that's going on inside the cylinder head. And so, with that being said, you got different style rings. You got dike rings, you got Napa rings, you got, and all rings are designed for specific application. Now, your typical engine that we run on a street, performance or daily driver, has a barrel face. Okay, so if you look at the ring, it's shaped like that. I'm exaggerating it, and only that edge right there is really riding on the cylinder wall, not the whole ring. And so what'll end up happening is if you don't get your rings seated, and this is how you can tell if your rings are junk or not. You tear the engine apart, and that barrel face is flat, and it looks like chrome. That ring's toast. It's junk. And then the other thing is too, it will literally, if you take your finger and run it along the edge of that ring, it will cut your finger like a razor blade because the ring material's all wore off. There's a moly face on there, and we run cast iron rings back in the day, and they didn't have a moly face on them. They were just an industrial type ring. But now we have moly faced rings, and once that moly face is gone off that ring, it's junk. It's not any good anymore. And that comes down to improper cylinder wall finish and the way you install the ring and the type of material you use to install it with. Now, CP, I don't know this for sure, but I think they buy their rings from Hastings. And which is totally different than Total Seal. And, every ring manufacturer, whatever their recommendation is, that's what you do. That's how you follow. But there's a lot more to it. It's pretty scientific. When you start digging into it, it's not as simple as just taking and buying a piston and buying a ring, and it doesn't matter what manufacturer, and honing a block, and it don't matter how you do it. You got to make sure all that stuff is happy with each other. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a big pile of junk. So,
yep.
And it takes years of engine building to figure that out. But, Paul's got a good point. I mean, you can, depending on the manufacturer and So what old school used to be is we used to put a really rough finish on the cylinder wall because we used an industrial ring, which was cast iron. And then they came out with a moly face, so we had to change our cylinder wall finish. Now the rings are even more high tech. They're getting thinner. They got a different. Some of them are nitrided. Some of them are not. Some of them have moly. Some of them don't. Some of them are stainless steel. Some are steel. There are so many different ring packages on the market now, and you have to know what cylinder wall finish to have with each one of them ring packages, and the proper break-in procedure and the proper assembly of lube for that ring package. So it's not one fits all. Is where I'm going with that. So, but no, good point, Paul. And you know what? Don't feel bad. I want to debate that. I don't want to get too technical because I don't want to lose people on the podcast, and so I'm hoping that I didn't lose anybody there.
Yeah, I just woke up.
I don't mean to do that.
What was we talking about?
So,
David 69 Pontiac asked, "What is the waiting list for an engine build at the moment?" Just wondering.
right now, because it's springtime, we're getting a ton of people inquiring. So we went out. We're out probably about 12 months to 15 months right now. So we're
15
busy.
months?
Yeah, 12 to 15 months. We were 9 months, but man, I just got and the problem is, guys. So think about what's going on. It's only me and not this Brandon, but I got another Brandon that works for me, Brandon Devies, and one part-time helper, and he doesn't know nothing. He's a grunt. All he does is clean parts. And I'm not picking on him. That's just where he is right now. He's 19 years old. He's learning. So Brandon's been with me for 15 years, and he still doesn't know everything he needs to know, which he's pretty good, but he's still got a lot to learn, just like I'm learning. I'm still learning. I've been doing it 43 years. Actually, 53 years. But anyway, make a long story short here. I just started getting on a tangent here, but we only got two guys that really know anything in the shop, and it takes between 40 and 80 hours, depending on the type of engine we build, to build a new engine. So you do the math. You know, there's 40 hours in a week, but unfortunately, you got an hour for lunch, you got an hour on the shitter, and then you got an hour of bullshit time because you're talking to customers or whatever. So realistically, you're only working 5 hours a day, and it takes a minimum of 40 hours to build an engine. So what does that add up to? You know, if you're working 5, that's 5 times 5, that's 25. So it takes you almost 2 weeks just to get the engine checked and assembled, not including machine work and everything else that goes into it. So we can only do a maximum of maybe 2 or 3 engines a month.
Get a couple of bottles of this, and buy Jason and I food.
Yeah,
and we'll get 2 motors done a day.
We're not gonna do that.
All right.
And my son knows better than that. That's why he's saying that.
All right. You snooze, you lose.
You gotta get the jet fuel going.
That's right. Jason and I will have that shit knocked out.
No alcohol and no phone calls while we're building engines.
Well, the phone calls won't happen.
No alcohol either.
Old School Twist says, question is the little buddy's name Gilligan?
And does he wear a white cap?
Yep. If Phil the Third says, Don, get the blue pills, then you have a big buddy. And
boy, this took a different turn.
Right? And then Todd S asked, do you like the gas ported rings with the low tension oil rings on race engines?
You know, actually Total Seal's got a really cool ring out now that's actually a gas ported ring and not the piston itself. And so what he's asking about is an old racer's trick back, from the super stock and pro stock days. What you do is you drill the tops of your pistons with holes in them. And what that does, whenever the combustion happens, it pushes out on that top ring and helps it seal. Well, now Total Seal came up with a new ring that actually has the gas port on the side and cut into the ring. So you get looks like they took a drill on all the way around the ring, and that allows the exhaust gas or combustion gas to get behind the ring and push it out. And then you got second rings that are gapless. And so you got there's so many different kinds of rings on the market right now.
Now, don't you normally run gapless with nitrous,
No,
or is that with?
it doesn't really matter what you.
Well, I don't know, but I hear all the time like street outlaws. The guys, oh, I run gapless rings because of I don't want blow by.
Well, gapless ring is supposed to control blow by, okay? But the other part of that equation is too. So now you got a gapless top ring, and we're getting into way too deep for this for what we were doing tonight. But
We
we're
don't
gonna
have enough of this.
we're gonna go there anyway. So you got a gapless top ring.
We're gonna
now.
go there anyway. All right,
Yeah, and we got a
buckle up,
gapless-
everybody.
we got a gapless second ring, and so I don't like gapless second rings. And the reason I don't like gapless second rings is because I like to make my gap a little bit bigger on my second ring to let a little bit of the pressure in between the top and the second ring escape, even though it goes into the crankcase. And the reason I do that is because I don't want ring flutter. And the higher the compression and the higher RPM the engine is, the more ring flutter you can experience.
How does she know?
So,
She's like,
what your wife told us we're in the black.
no, she says you're about to go into black. She's timing us.
Wow, she is
We got
good.
we got the two
Thanks,
producers.
Mandy.
She is good.
We got Mandy, and then we Jamie making sure we got everything in check here.
So, but anyhow, I don't want to get into that tonight. We can go into that in another
Well,
topic.
you know what? We'll make another podcast strictly on pistons and piston rings.
Yeah, we need to do that. And the thing that I'm trying not to do, guys, I don't want to get so technical that I lose everybody. I want you guys to have fun. So, that's why we're talking about our little buddies.
That's right.
Everybody can relate to that, right?
Old school twist said, not necessarily a big buddy, but maybe a hard headed.
Yeah.
Mark Timmer said you had on Facebook big things happening for drag racing new track owners with bigger and better racing.
Yeah, for sure, man. The IHRA just bought 3 tracks in Ohio and 7 total.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is awesome. I love IHRA's platform way better than NHRA, and NHRA's got its place. Don't get me wrong, but they become so political and politics.
NHRA, you mean?
ruining it. Yeah, NHRA. Is that what I said?
You said IHRA.
No, I'm sorry. But IHRA, their platforms are so freaking cool. They got they're the ones that first came out with Pro Mod, as far as I know, and then they got the top dragsters, which are alcohol and nitromethane, and then they got they just got a lot of cool categories, and it's way more entertaining for the fans. And they're gonna I don't know why it didn't take off for those guys, because I loved going to IHRA events way more than NHRA events.
Well,
Maybe because they didn't have the money back then. They couldn't do the big circus tent show like the NHRA does.
Well, I think what was cool for whenever, like, we would go down the National Trail and watch the big boys down there back in the day.
Yep, and
But-
Norwalk was too. That
Well,
was IHRA.
that's what I was saying. Norwalk was IHRA.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be more going on at Norwalk than there was down at National Trail.
Yeah, yep.
And
that was an NHRA event at that time. Yeah.
And what's really cool was, and I didn't know it at the time, there was a lot of big names in an IHRA back then
Oh,
that
heck yeah.
went to the NHRA and became even bigger. But there was a lot of big names coming up.
Oh yeah, yep. That IHRA had they had some heavy hitters, but their big thing was door cars with nitrous or blowers. Man, nothing like a Pro Mod car.
Well, I just liked watching the top alcohol funny cars because they'd always crash or blow up the bodies.
That's and so in IHRA you didn't have the pros that had all the big sponsors,
Right.
So Top Fuel cars and the Top Fuel dragsters and funny cars, them things, you're right, they blew up a lot because them guys are working on, literally they buy their parts used from the NHRA guys and build a car.
Yep.
So
Well, and it was cool too because like you would see a couple of cars that were sponsored, like the ethanol guy, the nitro fish guy, and you'd see a couple of those kind of guys, but most of them, they were like, you just see a black colored funny car. because he had no sponsors.
Well, it was backwoods and run what you brung, and I mean I love IHRA. I wish they wouldn't have petered off like they did, but and
What I'm excited about is who's the big top fuel guy that does a lot with IHRA? Is it Clay Milliken or
there's a lot of them. You're talking about John Forrest. You're talking about
no that he was
the
part
IHRA or
owner
NHRA?
part ownership of IHRA, and I don't know if he is anymore or not.
Oh, I don't.
He used to race top fuel dragsters.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He still might. I don't think it's Clay Milliken. What's the other guy?
I think Clay Milligan. He's NHRA.
I can't think of the guy now, but no, IHRA is good, especially for Dragway 42, which is our local track.
Yeah, that's a brand new facility too.
Well,
So,
that poor guy that owns that track, I mean, it's got hit with all those fines, and yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately he was on the verge of losing the track.
he already did. The bank took over, so he was trying to find a buyer for years.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I feel
because
bad for that guy. He got
I do
hosed.
too. I think he had $50 million investment in that place, and then the EPA and everybody was just reaming his ass, and that poor guy, he got bent over twice.
Yeah.
So
And that's a beautiful track. I haven't been there in person yet, but every single picture I see, the track's done right.
they're going to give Norwalk a run for their money with the IHRA.
And now IHRA is taking over. I'm sure IHRA is going to put some money into it. And that's going to give them the running water and the bathrooms and the stands and
Update the facility.
Yeah.
Even though it's a brand new facility, it's only like 5 years old.
Well, the
now.
guy ran out of money. He couldn't even put in working restrooms because he had no money left. He had to rent porta johns.
And he literally put a whole brand new track in.
Yeah.
I mean, front to back, and he turned it around. Instead of it going,
Well, it went the original way.
instead of going west to east, now it's going east to west. So
Yeah.
I mean, he turned it totally around. But yeah, that's an awesome facility.
And not, I follow them on Facebook. They had the Spider-Man guy that rides the Harley, or I don't know if it's Harley's, but the motorcycle
the
anyway.
Top Fuel Harley,
Yeah, set records on that track. Set records, period, for
Well,
that
track-
motorcycle.
that track's an old track. It used to be 4 lanes, like they do down in Charlotte. Is it Charlotte that they do the 4 lanes? The Charlotte Motorplex or whatever it's called down there.
Something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, and they used to have a Texas drag strip that's 4 lane, but I don't think they have that anymore.
Now Bristol's 4 lanes, I think now. Isn't that Z-Max?
Bristol's Thunder Valley. I don't think so.
Oh,
I think VMAX is Charlotte.
Z-Max, V-Max, whatever the
Or
hell it's
Z-Max,
called.
whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Yeah. And whoever their sponsor is.
Yeah, I would like to go see that. That'd be cool. 4 funny cars
Oh,
or
yeah.
4 top fuel dragsters at one time.
If you guys haven't seen a Top Fuel car run, you guys need to go. That's an amazing event.
Oh, Vegas. Yeah, Paul said Vegas is 4 lanes. If Vegas is 4 lanes, I
Yeah,
forgot about that.
That's
yeah,
right. Yep. Exactly.
that's a new track too, isn't it?
It's not new,
Or
but it's fairly new. I don't know.
Redone.
Yeah, I think it was redone, and I think that's probably why Texas Motorplex isn't 4 lane anymore. They probably took too much business from them.
You see Sam's question. What's your plans on the Pontiac Nationals this year?
Well, the guys all met at the shop last weekend, and unfortunately, I wish I could help more. I can't because I got too much going on this year. So, besides running a business, what I got going on is I got to put an addition on the back of my building. I got to finish that up, which means it's going to require permits and variances and a lot of time being down at the hall meetings and all that kind of bullshit. And then once I get the building up, then I got to get my dyno up and running because I got an engine dyno I haven't been able to use because we never had the facility for it until now. And I got to get that up and running. And then the next step is I'm going to try to put together some kind of I need to find an investor or get a grant or something because I want to put a CNC machine in there. That way I can get this guy in there full time. And then I got, on top of that, we're doing 2 new cylinder heads, which we're starting to get to the end, but I've been working on that program for 6 years now, and so hopefully I'm going to get to finish that up and start selling those here in the next month or two. And then the other part of the equation is my Ram Air 5 stuff right now is just really taking off for me, and that's how it works. You know, whenever I came out with the Tiger head, it took probably 10, 12 years before that head started to really get traction. And that's about where we are right now with the Ram Air 5 head. I can't hardly believe it. It's been almost 10 years now.
I think it's actually been more than that.
No, it's pretty close to 10. I just seen the invoice on one of the tooling things I had made. So it's been 10 years, but now it's finally starting to get traction. And so I got that going on, and I'm trying to streamline my business and get that so that we can offer, you know, basic packages that, you know, if you want my stuff, you're going to have to buy my package. I'm not going to build custom engines anymore. And the reason that is because it takes too much time and too much money to make different packages all the time. There's a reason custom costs more money. So I'm going to try to streamline that and make it so that we have basic packages. And if you guys want to modify it from there, you got to buy it and take it home and do whatever you want to do to it. But whenever you buy it from me, we're going to offer like a 500 horsepower, 600 horsepower, 700, whatever. I don't even know what the numbers are going to be, but anyway, we're working on that. And the other thing is too, I'm trying to get my engine together right now so I can get my son into Le Mans this year, which he's going to have to help. He's going to have to do most of. I'm going to try to get the engine together. After that, he's on his own. He's going to have to get it in the car, him and Jason. And they're going to have to go through the wiring and go through the suspension. And we got, man,
my neighbors are going to love me. Burnouts on Longview.
You do whatever you do, but I don't want no part of that.
That's fine.
You already know how crazy I am. You put a little beer in me, and I'm stupid.
well,
the channel might get some.
It might. We might.
I'm
Have
like, Jason, hold my beer and video this.
We might have a viral video. And you know what? My son's driveway goes uphill.
Yeah.
And it's got a tie wall on one side and a grass yard on the other side. So if he bounces off the wall, he's going to shoot across the neighbor's yard.
Yep. And my wheels will be way up like Fast and Furious style. That'd be great.
And when you launch off the end of your driveway, it will have all four wheels off the ground.
I'll be on just a wheelie bar. That'd be fantastic.
I'm hoping that don't happen.
I don't know, Jason. We got the video camera here.
Yeah.
It gets more views.
Yep.
Channel's gonna be booming.
Yeah.
Well, it's 7:07, so.
Oh, yep.
Do we want to answer a couple more?
Yeah, we can get a few more questions in real quick.
I don't see much. I see jokes. I see Philip III. He's still joking.
Yep.
I'm not
Finish
seeing
it off, Dad.
Ram Air 5 heads. He
That's
says
all
he's
I
checking
got.
a mailbox daily. Well, you must have a big mailbox.
My mailbox fills up pretty quick.
Warren's Warriors said that Ray Farrow, Ram Air 5 judge, ran 42 during the 4-lane days, and he has pictures that he took from the 4-lane days at 42.
And so I don't know if he knows it or not, but that's Chuck Henley's car.
Yep. Now, is that the actual Ray Farrow car?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know if that was
the
a
real
tribute
deal.
car. Oh, okay.
No, that is the real deal. And I built the real engine, the one that was raced in that car back in the 60s and 70s.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that car was a big part of Ohio's history.
Yeah.
It was in Elyria, Ohio, that dealership, I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I built the engine in that car, and Chuck found that at a Skipco auction.
Wow.
I mean, and it didn't look like that whenever he bought it. The car was painted orange and had a fiberglass hood and bumper on the front of it. So he didn't even know what it was until he run the VIN number. Then he realized. Then he got all the data back from PHS and found out what that car was.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Is it Knaufel or is it Knoffel? Knaufel?
Yeah.
Pontiac used to rent the track during the 60s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were big-time racers back in the day. I got another customer, too, and that bought the Knaufel Ram Air 570 GTO. There was two of them, an automatic and a 4-speed. One of them was blue and silver, and the other one was all silver. And a customer of mine in Canada bought that, and I built the engine for that car. We were supposed to do the restoration on that car, but we didn't end up getting it. But anyway, yeah. So I've been involved in several Ram Air 5 projects that were heavy hitters back in the day.
Warren's Warriors said he knows the original owner and full history.
That's cool.
That is cool.
And so Chuck Henley actually looked him up, put an ad in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, I think is how he found the guy. And he was looking for the original engine, and because the car came with no engine in it, and that's how he stumbled onto the guy. I don't know if he was the owner or if he was the guy that actually drag raced it, because I don't know if that car was ever titled. It only had 1,300 miles on it, I think, when Chuck bought it. So it was all drag strip miles. There was no street miles on that car.
Wow. NHRA Bandit wants to know Ram Air 5 first gen Firebird headers ETA.
First gen Firebird headers, I might have some on the shelf right now. If I don't, Mark from Mad Dog will be coming back from Florida here probably this month or next month, and I could probably have a set in about 3 to 6 weeks.
And then Warren's Warriors said he has old pictures of that car, and he has a Ram Air 570 Judge.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a 70 Judge also. It's a black car with a red interior. It came from the factory with the Ram Air 3 4-speed. Stripped down. Believe it or not, on my build sheet, all it has is heavy-duty shocks, floor mat delete.
Which used to cost money.
And something else, I forget what, but there's only 3 lines on the line item list. And so whoever bought my car back in the day, and it was bought in a dealer in North Carolina, and whoever bought that car had bought it for racing. And they apparently blew up the original Ram Air 3 engine and 4-speed in the car. I did find an original 4-speed for the car, but it's got a 390 10-bolt nodular rear end in it. But anyhow, what I'm going to do with that car is I'm going to convert that thing to a DCI Motorsports Ram Air 5, and we're going to resto mod that thing and make it beautiful. It's a black car with red interior, and we're going to keep it that way. We're going to put tinted glass in it, slam it on the ground, put 18s and 20 or 19s on it, and 3-inch exhaust, and I'm thinking maybe a supercharged Ram Air 5. We're going to do the LSA supercharger.
NHRA Bandit says he needs a set.
Okay.
And
now,
then,
keep in mind, NHRA Bandit, which them headers are only for my heads. They do not fit the factory head because I raised my exhaust port an inch. If you need them for the factory heads, I can provide those for you too. But my header that I designed and built does not fit the factory head. It'll bolt on, but it won't fit the chassis.
because it'll be pushed down too far.
Well, it raises them up, and then whenever you put them on the stock location, yeah, it'll push it down and won't have any ground clearance.
Right.
And it might even hit the frame. I don't even know, because that one tube coming from the front might hit on the frame.
Warren's Warriors, he's a NHRA tech.
Cool.
And NHRA Bandit says he has your heads.
Okay.
And then David 69 Pontiac, spend a stack of money on some old cast iron 670 1613 heads, or wait till your Ram Air 4 castings.
My Ram Air 3 and Ram Air 4 castings, I don't know if Troy's on tonight, but they're working on that up there at the machine shop, and they're getting pretty close, I think. We've been having a lot of conversations this week with the tooling maker, getting the blueprints and everything sorted out, and I'm hoping that Troy's getting ready to make chips here pretty soon. And once we do the R&D on the machining, make sure everything's going to work, I got to get the heads back at my shop. And then once I get them back to my shop, we're going to put seats and guides, flow test them, do the valve job, blah, 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 and cut a couple of heads apart and make sure that there's no problems with the water jackets and that kind of thing, and the combustion chambers are thick enough, and everything I do. Anyhow, once we do that, then I'm going to be selling those heads here pretty soon. The problem is because the foundry, I got to place an order with the foundry, and you don't want to order 100 castings if you got an effed up problem. You know what I mean? So I haven't placed an order yet with the foundry until after we get that done. But what I will do once I get the machining all done, and we know that we're going to have that all sorted out, then I will tell everybody we are taking orders. And then I'll try to give you some kind of a timeline. And please don't hold my feet to the fire to it if I don't get it exact. But we're going to give you some kind of a timeline. And then we will start selling these HUDs.
NHR Bandit says he'll reach out to you tomorrow.
All right.
And the time is now 7:15, and I don't see any more questions. So I think we're going to wrap it up now. And that way we can have something for next week to talk about.
We got lots to talk about. All you got to do is get me going. As soon as you ask me a question about something I know, I mean, you know,
Well,
don't ask me about dating because I've been married 43 years. I don't know nothing about that.
Well,
And I don't know if Mama's watching tonight. But,
she is.
Okay, good. So that was a good answer.
But we had a few new people that names I haven't seen. So thank you for commenting and joining us.
That's freaking awesome. Thank
Yep.
you guys. And please share.
Yes.
'Cause we want to make sure and grow this channel.
So everyone's saying goodbye. So yeah. So thanks for hanging with us. Be safe out there, and we'll see y'all next week.